Happy Tuesday. How we doing? It is 9:30 on a Tuesday, and you are hanging out with Johnny Gaz Sports. Thank you for returning for another version of Johnny Gaz Live. The Lions are 3-1. Lions are 3-1, coming off of a victory over the Cleveland Browns this past Sunday. We're going to hit on everything. We're going to do a Week 4 recap. We're going to do a Week 5 look ahead. Talk about the key performers coming out of last week, the concerns, the highlights, all the key players. We're going to talk about those injuries. I think we got to spend a little time on that. It's a big concern as we move forward. So we're going to hit on the injury concerns and talk about what this means moving forward for our Lions as they stand at 3-1 and atop of the NFC North. Welcome back to the stream. Thank you guys for getting in early in the chat. We're going to have so much to talk about today. We'll be throwing you guys questions all night long. What's up, Millicent? What's up, Broski? What's up, Trim? Thank you guys for getting involved in the chat early. Howdy, howdy, howdy do. Happy Tuesday. How are we feeling tonight, guys? I feel pretty good. Our kind of a late start at a rush down here and get things kind of rolling quickly, but we got things off and running, and I am happy and ready to go. Got my beverage of choice. I hope you do as well. Let's have a happy Tuesday night. What do we say? A lot of news to cover out of this week. A lot of good stuff coming off of this 34-10 victory for the Lions. So let's start right there. Lions this past Sunday battling what at the time many deemed to be the best defense in the NFL. Now that, I think, is something we'll have to wait to see down the road. Does this Cleveland defense really hold up throughout the remainder of the year? Can we really say it's one of the better defenses? That right now you could maybe make that argument. Well, Detroit went in and handled business. Brought Cleveland into town and handled the Browns and sent them packing. 34-10. So there's not much to complain about when we live in Lionstown at 3-1 and we have a victory at 34-10. But we're going to find a few holes to poke here from this victory, and we're going to talk about them. But Lions fans, chat, let me know in the comments. Let's start right there. What was your biggest takeaway from this win against the Cleveland Browns? What is your biggest takeaway? And there's a lot from this game. We're going to get into everything. What's up, Mile Marker? How you doing, buddy? So let's talk about this game. 34-10 Lions victory over the Browns, really on the strength of their defense, special teams, a balanced offensive attack. I think what we really have to be happy with coming out of this is the defensive performance, really rounding into shape. Aiden Hutchinson becoming a true superstar factor, which we all knew he would be. But I think it took a couple games for him to get his legs, no pun intended, underneath him. And now we're really seeing that. And he became a factor, not only with sacking the quarterback, but also the forced fumble. So you have to be really happy with his performance. The linebackers, Jack Campbell, the way he's taken over this defense. And the secondary made plays, turnovers. I mean, they won the turnover battle. They created points from those turnovers. I think it was 17 points off turnovers. And then they got 13 points from their special teams. And that is maybe the other big factor from that game is the performance of Khalif Raymond in the punt return. A 65-yard punt return, which really sparked that game for the Lions. I mean, it was 20-10 in the fourth quarter. As a matter of fact, Cleveland had a shot at a field goal and missed. And the Lions really needed a spark. And they get that through their special teams, through Khalif Raymond, an all-pro punt returner. And that's why the Lions have so much faith in a guy like that. He's the Swiss Army knife. He's the jack of all trades for the Lions. And it's that kind of play when you have to have it in a game that could have been a letdown week. You know, coming in a short week, coming off of that big victory against Baltimore, this could have been a letdown. Short week, bringing in a tough defense. And the Lions pulled it out. Sometimes you have to find other ways to win, and they did that through their defense and through special teams in week 4. The offense wasn't as good as they had been in previous weeks. I mean, 34 points is great, but really they only came about 10 natural offensive points. We talked about the points off turnovers and special teams. And the offense wasn't bad. Jared Goff wasn't bad, but he had an uncharacteristic interception. I think there were some timing issues between him and Jamison Williams. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. And the inside rushing attack kind of left a lot to be desired in this game against Cleveland. I thought they really had a tough time getting it going inside of the tackles. And really the only success they found on the ground was Gibbs cutting it to the outside, using his athleticism to make plays. And it paid off for him. Again, 34-10 victory. And again, I don't want to just poke holes in it. I'm very happy with that performance. And it showed that the Lions can win a football game in many ways. That's what true Super Bowl contenders do. And that's what the Lions did. But David Montgomery was not a factor in this game. So the rushing attack against a formidable rush defense in Cleveland, it was tough sledding for the Lions there. They made it tough for the Lions on the inside, and they found ways to win this game and really run away with it at the end. Really show that they were the better football team. What's up, Justin? I'm also happy for Raymond. What up, Paul? How you doing, Trim? Broski says, Lions generated pass rush and took care of business. How long are TA and Reed out for? And that's a huge takeaway from this game. We're going to talk about it. And that's a big thing. I mean, that's now the biggest question coming out of this is, what do the Lions do with the cornerback injuries? Yes, they lost Terrion Arnold to injury in this game against the Browns. They also lost DJ Reed to injury in this game. Terrion Arnold with a shoulder. DJ Reed with a hamstring. Dan Campbell did come out after the game and now this week and have said that neither of these injuries are season-ending. Terrion Arnold actually is much more short-term, and there's a chance he plays this week. If not this week, definitely next week, according to Dan Campbell. So the prognosis on Terrion Arnold is good. He just needs some rest, needs to recover. DJ on the other end, hamstring, that takes time. It's not a season ender, and they expect to get him back, but I think he'll be short-term IR. I don't think we see him for at least another 4 weeks, if not more. But he will return. But that leaves a question at the Lions cornerback position. Can they pick up where they have guys in the depth positions? Rock Ya-Sin, Khalil Dorsey. We know Amik Robertson. Guys like Brian Branch can play cornerback, can shift between positions there. So there is some versatility. And Paul brings up a great point. Lions just signed Trey Flowers. Lions came out and said they've signed former Seahawks corner Trey Flowers to their practice squad per a league source. He has 287 career tackles, 4 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, and 5 fumble recoveries. And this coming from the Pride of Detroit website. It says, after suffering a rash of injuries in their secondary against Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions are reportedly signing some help at cornerback. According to league sources, Trey Flowers, formerly a 5th-round draft pick by the Seattle Seahawks in 2018, and most recently a member of the Chicago Bears practice squad, is joining the Lions practice squad per Aaron Wilson of KPRC to Houston. The Lions are bringing in some practice squad depth help. It's not a huge move, truthfully, and I didn't expect a huge move. Knowing Brad Holmes, knowing this organization, and knowing that these cornerbacks, Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed, are going to return, they're not going to go spend a bunch of money. So there's kind of their move to add some depth, add some pieces there. So we talked about how they'll sort of make up for that. And we talked last week about the struggles of Terrion Arnold, the penalty issue, and that continued in week 4. So the truth was he was struggling, but you don't want him out of the lineup. You can't build and grow in that position if you're not playing. So they want to get him back, and that's sort of expected. If not this week, next week. So they do expect him to return, and they now added Flowers as, like you said, that tackling machine, Paul. And that sort of fits their defensive mold, right? That's the kind of guy they're looking for. So I think he'll see the field. I mean, ultimately, he's got experience. I think he sees the field. It's a good pickup. Short term, no money really involved there, so it works out. Because if they don't trim, they were thin at corner. So I think they had to make some sort of move. I don't think they had a ton of practice squad depth at corner, so this is kind of the move to add to that. Yeah, the word is that they added not only a cornerback, but also a linebacker. They cut Ronnie Bell from the practice squad to make these roster moves. And I'm just taking a look at the Pride of Detroit website to see who this linebacker is that they brought in as well. Free agent linebacker Ty Summers. So Summers for a brief stint on the team back in 2024 training camp. So he actually has time with the Lions. So there's the linebacker they brought in. But to me, the linebacker doesn't really make a difference. That's just an addition to the practice squad. They're filling out the roster. I mean, the cornerback addition, I think, makes more sense in that case. Trey Flowers, that addition. And that's sort of how they're going to make up for this. But it is a whole. I mean, DJ Reed was playing very well, got the interception here against Cleveland. That veteran presence, you just don't make up for. And so I think that's a huge loss for the Lions. I really do. The quicker they can get him back, the better. But again, the prognosis is going to be at least, I'd say at least 4 weeks, through the bye. And then we'll see where he's at. But I agree, missing Reed is going to hurt. Let's bring you guys in on the chat here. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get this chat on the screen. Say hello to everybody. I want to get you guys involved. That's always what we do here on Johnny Gaz Sports. That's right, Trim. Missing Reed is going to hurt. Paul, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate you getting involved. Let me know. How big are these losses to the cornerbacks? Can the Lions make up for it? Does it hurt their defense? Can they make the necessary moves to continue the momentum that they've built now through 4 weeks? That's really big. So let me know in the chat. Broski has a few questions. Says, how has DJ Reader been playing? I think he's been playing really good. And between him and Tyleik Williams, I think they're very happy with the production they're getting in the middle. Now, the problem with I don't want to say a problem, but DJ Reader is no sort of pass rush threat whatsoever. And Tyleik Williams really isn't that also. So I think they really miss Aleem McNeil, and we're going to talk about him in a minute. But if you're looking at what the skill set is that DJ Reader brings to the Lions, I mean, he's a run stuffer, he's a gap filler, and he's doing that many times over. He's allowing Aiden Hutchinson to be the player that he's able to be. So I'm happy with what DJ Reader's been putting on tape. As far as Laporta, I think he was a little bit down against Cleveland, but he's played fantastic the first 3 weeks of the season, and he was really a security blanket for Goff against the Ravens. I'm sure you watched that game, Broski, on Monday night. I mean, Laporta dug him out of a third down hole several times, especially in those long drives they had. He was so key. And I think if Laporta stays healthy, he will be such a key piece of this offense. I made the argument after his rookie season that he might be the most important player offensively to the Lions in a lot of ways because he's Jared Goff's security blanket. And he showed that against the Ravens, not so much against Cleveland, but they didn't necessarily need it. Avonte Maddox, Trim, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, he's still in the rotation. More of a safety, really. So I think if they're going to take Branch and kind of move him around, maybe shift him back to that nickel corner, if we have to move to the outside, if it gets real bad, Avonte Maddox, they trust at that safety position. So that's another guy depth-wise that they can rely on. And you're right, Paul. Truthfully, they only need to get a few choice stops. And if they can be opportunistic with turnovers, that's going to make the biggest difference. But truthfully, Paul, I thought the defense is really what won them the game against Cleveland. The offense was not the thing that carried the day. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown was fantastic. To me, he was your top performer and really has been all season long. He leads all wide receivers this year with touchdowns with 6, 2 TDs against Cleveland. But what a solid factor to have each and every week. Amon-Ra St. Brown is just an automatic TD now every single week long. So to have that in your back pocket at any time is just incredible. Fleeting XP, how you doing, buddy? He says, can we hit Casey hard enough to hinder PM from utilizing Worthy and Rice if he's back? That's going to be, it's interesting. I'm curious how the Lions handle the Bengals weapons at wide receiver. I think that'll tell us a lot, especially with the way the cornerbacks are. And we're going to talk about the week 5 projection here in a minute. I think their defensive line certainly can get to KC. So I think if that holds true, and they've shown that against Lamar Jackson, if that continues, I think they'll be okay in that matchup. Al-Qadim Muhammad, we've talked about him last week. And again, I think he was suffering a little bit from injuries this last week. So his production stat-wise wasn't really there against Cleveland, but he certainly still made an impact. Trim Amik is not injured. He's still well in the lineup. I expect him to be one of your starting corners in Cincinnati this week, and he's going to be a huge part of how they recover from this cornerback injury issue. So let's keep going. Let's talk about the key performers. I just hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Jahmyr Gibbs was explosive. He was back to a 5.7, 6.1 yards per carry, somewhere in there. Had the burst, had the speed, was really the guy running back-wise against Cleveland versus the week before where it was Monty's day. But that's the benefit of having a two-headed monster, Sonic and Knuckles, is that usually you're not going to hold both of those guys down. Even a great defensive rush presence like Cleveland was not able to hold down both of those guys. Paul says, hot take, Hutch could realistically win MVP at this pace. Definitely DPOY. Yeah, I made an argument for sure that he was on pace for that in 2024 before the injury, if that pace had continued. So there's a possibility. I don't see him as an MVP. You know, I think if the Lions keep winning, we have a wide receiver that right now is putting himself in the argument. If you really want to make a hot take, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is making a case for MVP. And if he continues at his pace, I mean, he's putting up numbers. These are historical now. We're getting to that point. Going back to our key performers against Cleveland, we talked about the defense. I mean, Hutchinson himself was dominant. Jack Campbell, disruptive. Really a great unit. They forced turnovers, got to Joe Flacco, got to the backup tackles from Cleveland. I mean, they did everything you kind of expected them to do against a bad offense. Let's put it for what it is. The Cleveland offense is not good. Cleveland defense, good. Cleveland offense, bad. You get what I'm saying? And the offensive line, I mean, a key factor in this whole thing. If the offensive line doesn't keep Jared Goff clean, there were 0 sacks on the day against Myles Garrett in a very formidable rush or a pass rush from Cleveland. So you have to give them a bunch of credit. Every time the offensive line for the Lions plays well, good things happen. I don't think the Bengals can handle the run, Danny. I agree with you, bud. Danny Clute, appreciate you checking in. I agree with you. That's going to be a tough stop for them. Bengals are going to have a real tough time with the Lions. We're going to talk about this in full here in just a moment. Tell me in the chat, which Lions player impressed you most from week 4? In this victory against the Cleveland Browns, who was your MVP from week 4? Who impressed you the most? Let me know in the chat. Captain Jack the Hammer. That's right. Broski says St. Brown could win the OPOY and Hutch DPOY the way they're playing. A lot would have to happen. That'd be incredible. I'm here for it. Oh, I would say if I had to pick between the two of those, I'd be more leaning in the Hutch direction for DPOY versus St. Brown. I just think as a wide receiver, you got to do so many good things consistently. You got to stay healthy. So many good things. Trim, what you talking about? Don't go home. We need you here, buddy. Hutch is on pace for 18 sacks, says Paul. 8 forced fumbles, 50 tackles, and an interception. I mean, those are DPOY numbers, no doubt about it. Mal Marker says ARSB and Campbell for MVP for week 4. I agree with you, man. Those are 2 great picks. Jack Campbell is a tackling machine. I think he had 11 tackles in this game against Cleveland. He's the clear leader of this defense. And has really done a good job as far as patrolling the middle of the field for the Lions, being that solid presence. St. Brown MVP. A lot of those here. I'm with you. I think St. Brown's the MVP from week 4. And I wouldn't have predicted that. I would not have predicted that going into this. Some key stats coming out of this win and a few other wins. We talked about St. Brown's 6 TD catches, leading the league. And again, just showing he's the best overall all-around wide receiver in the NFL. And no, he may not have the high point and speed and jumping ability of Justin Jefferson, but he has all of the intangibles you want in a wide receiver. Hands, he's shifty, he's tough, he's gritty, he's willing to block, he's available, he plays every game nonstop, 110%. I mean, he is a great example for the rest of your organization, and he's proving it on and off the field. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, just incredible. Lions in general have scored 124 points in their last 3 games. The pace of that is just amazing. And again, Hutchinson and his pressure rate just top tier, building on the aura that is this DPOY and everything that he means to this Lions defense. Now, I would love to see more help from the other side. I know we talked about Muhammad. I think it was lacking a little bit against Cleveland, but we'll give him certainly a pass because he was injured. But where else is it going to come from? So there's always still that question. Does Davenport return down the road, and can they continue to platoon on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson to get production so that this defensive line continues the way it's played? And overall, the defensive line has held rushing attacks in check every single week, and that held true against Cleveland again. So not only were they creating pressure, but they're dominating up front. I mean, into not only offensive line, but defensive line. That continued week 3, week 4. Those are good trending things for this Lions team as we head towards the middle of this season. So let's talk about some concerns that I had coming out of this game before we move on. One's got to be Jameson Williams. So I'm going to throw this out to you guys in chat because I think this is a big topic. Jameson Williams. A lot was expected from him as we entered this 2025 season. In training camp in the preseason, you started to hear things that his route tree was expanding, that there was more trust in him in this John Morton offense, that they were going to push the ball down the field, which was going to give Jameson Williams so much opportunity and that he could ultimately be the biggest breakout player for this season. So far in 2025, that hasn't really been the case. He's had a couple catches each week. He's been involved, but hasn't been a factor. And I think it really came to a head in Cleveland, or against Cleveland here, where it was very obvious they were trying to get him the football. In situations where they were pushing the ball down the field or got an opportunity with their play action, they were very clearly trying to get the Goff to JMO connection going, and it just didn't happen. Whether that's in timing, communication, breaking a route off, or truly just dropping the football, it really didn't matter. It just seemed like that just wasn't going to happen against Cleveland. So the ultimate question here is there a problem with Jameson Williams in this offense? Can this be turned around? Or is this a bigger problem? Is this a true connection issue between Jared Goff and Jameson Williams? I thought that had been worked through. It felt like they had built that connection towards the end of last season. And again, what we saw in some of these joint practices and in training camp. But so far, that hasn't correlated into the regular season. And if the Lions are going to push the ball down the field, they have to get Jameson Williams going. That threat has to be there for all of the other short to intermediate routes and concepts that they have to work. So the more and more that connection doesn't show or pay dividends for this Lions offense, I think the less effective that's going to be overall and could negatively affect the offense. But let me know what you guys think. Is this a true issue with Jameson Williams in this Lions offense here in 2025, or can this be turned around? I really think there's just too much talent there with JMO for this not to turn around. I think timing can be worked out. It seemed like in a couple cases there in Cleveland, Jared Goff maybe even forced the ball. And that's not necessarily Jameson Williams' fault. The drops, that is his fault, and that has to turn around. If you're going to get an opportunity and Jared Goff puts the ball in your hands, you have to make plays. And I think he will do that. So let's have patience. It's only week 4. Let's give this some time. Let's come back at this here in a few weeks and see where we're at with JMO. Fleeting says, and against that rush, JG was never going to be accurate on long developing routes. That's fair. That's fair. Goff had to rush a lot of throws, knowing that rush was coming, and he wasn't sacked, so he did a good job. He knew he had to distribute the football. So, yes, some of those throws were rushed, so that can affect the timing and a lot of things. So, again, I'm not going to beat him up for this 1 week, more so looking at the 4 weeks in total. Paul says J-Mo will be good. He's just getting some nerves going on after signing that deal. Well, look, Paul, I mean, there could be something to that. I think the other side of that, I'll argue, is if you have that deal, you now need to produce. And I think that's the expectation for the Lions. I don't think they're going to put so much pressure on him yet, but they trusted him enough to give him that contract, and he's got to produce. He's a weapon. It makes this offense better when that connection is there. So let's hope that they can work that out. Miles says, I think Goff still trusts J-Mo, but it wasn't great. It wasn't a great day for that. I agree. I don't think they're going away from him. That argument is not to say that J-Mo is failing or that that's not working. It's just it hasn't worked yet. Broski says, I think Morton is intentionally working Laporta into more targets, which lowers J-Mo's. I agree. I expected more targets for J-Mo, but here's the thing. He was targeted just as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown was against Cleveland. So they made the concerted effort. But I think that's really the question. Was that too many targets for him at this point based on the production that they can give and the other weapons that are available? And you don't want them forcing the ball to J-Mo to affect the bigger picture. You know what I mean? To affect the offense in a bigger sense. What's up, Steve? He says mostly true, but by him burning down the field takes best DB out of play and open up middle field. You're right. And so, I mean, the threat of him is what makes that work, right, Steve? And I'm with you. So I guess my argument is the more that connection actually works, the more that threat truly plays a part in that effect, right? Because then the defense has to account. I mean, there's always going to be a DB with J-Mo, but if you know, in some cases, you have to have 2 safeties deep, 3 safeties deep. The more that the Lions can prove they can force the ball down the field, and that connection between Goff and J-Mo is true and real, and is a threat every single week, every possession, then it becomes even more dangerous. So that's all. I want to see more of it, and I think it will turn around. I agree, Danny. Trim says Super Bowl bound, baby. I agree. Let's go. Hey, Millicent, how you doing? She says, I know it's early in the season, but there's no denying that it feels good to have beat the teams and considered to have the number 1 offense and then the one with the number 1 defense. Yeah. I mean, the argument this week was, you know, Lions haven't beat anybody. You know, they haven't beat anybody. Well, you beat a Ravens team that looks the way they look because you beat them up so bad. And the whole Honolulu Blue flu we talked about a couple weeks ago held true with the Ravens again this week, where they go and have a tough performance against Kansas City. They lose again. And I agree, Millicent. Let's give J-Mo time. This isn't a Waymo Knox situation, but it's something to keep our eyes on. And we want that connection to work. So let's talk about Aleem McNeil. News came out this week as Dan Campbell was updating us with the cornerback injuries that there's potential that they're going to start Aleem McNeil's injury window. So that kind of brings up the question of what does this defense look like when he returns? How quickly ultimately will he return? And when he does, what does that look like for the Lions? Because right now, McNeil is currently on a reserve or physically unable to perform list. So right now, he doesn't count against the roster. Again, this coming from the Pride of Detroit website. If and when the Lions return into practice, he'll remain on that list, but Detroit will have activated his 21-day evaluation period. So over the next 3 weeks, McNeil can remain on the reserve PUP list, but cannot play until he's activated to the 53-man roster. Anytime during those 21 days, Lions can opt to take him off reserve PUP and onto the 53. If he remains on the reserve at the conclusion of 21 days, Detroit must either decide to place him on the 53 or shut him down. So in short, once McNeil returns to practice, he's eligible to join the roster and play in any game at any point over those 3 weeks. That's great news. I think we heard a lot of good things from Aleem McNeil leading up to this ultimate news that he was ready to come back. I think the Lions are doing the smart thing and giving this enough time. ACL, you know, it's one of those things you don't mess with. You give it the time it needs. I don't expect him to rush him back. He's certainly not playing this week. I don't expect him next week. Ultimately, at this point, I don't know if we've actually heard that they did activate that window just as of yet today. So we'll wait for that. I really expect them to drag this through to the bye week and then have him return after the bye. That's my expectation with Aleem McNeil. If he returns sooner than that, great. That tells me they're way ahead of schedule. Since to me they already are, but it will make this defense something else entirely, because Aleem McNeil adds, not only, again, he was a rush stuffing presence, but he also can rush the passer. He's so athletic that he affects the quarterback from the middle. And that is what was also making Hayden Hutchinson so great. So you combine those two back together on top of what you were getting from DJ Reader, Tyleek Williams, all the other cast of characters you have there, and I think it means great things. That's it, Paul. He's a pass rusher up the middle. He gives you that extra weapon through your pass rush. It's going to be a huge impact trim. And Tyleek will get that rest that he certainly earned. Young player's been playing a lot. Between him and Reader and some of those guys, they're playing a lot of snaps. A lot of snaps. But ultimately, the McNeil return could be the midway point acquisition that this Lions team needs to put them over the edge. Now, the cornerback situation we talked about, and they've brought on now the additional depth piece, right? And they're going to fill it in with the players they have with Amik Robertson, Khalil Dorsey, Rock Ya-Sin, Avonte Maddox, all the guys we talked about. But when McNeil returns, that's going to be, I think, the difference maker. A true difference maker added back into the middle of your defensive line. I mean, that's truly what can make or break a season, can get you through a playoff run, can get you to a Super Bowl. That was proven by the Philadelphia Eagles last year. So I'm excited for Aleem McNeil's return. And I don't think they'll rush it, but again, I expect it after the bye. I agree the sooner the better, but I think let's have the Lions be smart with it. You know, the other injury I think we need to keep our eyes on is Taylor Decker, right? Who's played every week. He's been on he's really hasn't practiced during the week and then plays in the games. I think the concern is his shoulder, right? The biggest concern is the shoulder. That's got to hold up, because the Lions offensive line to me is the bread and butter of everything else that happens. They won defensively and through special teams against Cleveland, but that's not going to carry the day every single week. They need this offense to be back running 100%. For that to be the case, the offensive line has to be 100%, and Taylor Decker's such a huge part of that. Yes, Penei Sewell's putting together a Hall of Fame type season, but to have that pairing with Decker on the other side combined with the young guards, that's what makes everything work. So I also think we need to keep our eyes on this Decker injury. So let's talk about the bigger picture now. Lions at 3-1. NFC North, they're at the top of the division right now, solely as we stand today. We know what happened with the Bears, the Vikings, the Packers. Had that very interesting game against Dallas, the tie, which I think helps the Lions in the long term. Those two teams tying. That was just a terrible ending to a football game, but it is what it is. But ultimately puts the Lions on top of the North Division right now at the quarter point, let's call it. What up, Darcy? What up, Doe? What up, Fleety? Can Manu spell him this week? Manu could spell him. I don't think Decker needs a spell. We'll see what the injury report looks like. I expect the same thing this week. I think Decker doesn't practice or is very limited and then can play. I didn't see him coming out with anything worse than what he had going in. There were no news from Dan Campbell or any updates about Decker, so I expect him to play this week. I just think that ultimately that's the veteran on your offensive line. You can't afford to just lose or have that shoulder get worse. So I want to keep my eyes on that one. But bigger picture, NFC North, Lions on top. And the ultimate question is this too early to say that the NFC North is Detroit's to lose? Now with the Lions having sole possession and being in control, with the way the Lions playing not only offensively, but the way the defense and the special teams now rounding into form, are the Lions the class of the NFC North right now as we stand here heading into Week 5? Let me know in the chat. They certainly look like the most balanced team in the division, right? A team that outside of week 1, and we know how bad that looked. But I think now we've kind of overcome the stench of week 1 through week 2, week 3, now week 4. The Lions' identity, getting back to this offensive line, the rushing attack, Jared Goff and the weapons, and now the defense rounding back into form with Aiden Hutchinson leading the charge. Yes, we have the questions with the cornerbacks, but I think ultimately the Lions have the most balanced team in the division. We certainly said that going into the season. I think now things have rounded back into that form now as we head into week 5. So let's look ahead. Week 5. Lions have a matchup coming up with the Cincinnati Bengals. They'll go back on the road in the AFC to a team who's playing now on a short week. Cincinnati Bengals, who had played Monday night, they lost. Looked terrible in doing so, and they're now at 2-2. Issues at quarterback. We know they're going to be without Joe Burrow for a significant amount of time. He's sidelined with a grade 3 turf toe injury. Really tough for the Bengals because it really makes everything else difficult for them. Like with most teams, your star quarterback goes down and a lot of other things fall apart. But for the Bengals, it just means so much more. So we're going to get into that preview. Paul says Lions are the class of the NFL, not just the North. I like that, Paul. I like that confidence. Detroit will retain their crown, says Trim. Paul again says Lions and Eagles. And I agree with you, Paul. I think Lions and Eagles are the class of the NFC. They put themselves right back in that position. I think we were right there at the end of last year before the playoffs started. I think we're back there again. Both Lions and Eagles, when I watched a lot of NFL football, they look like the two teams who ultimately were able to figure out ways to win football games when you didn't have your best. And that's the sign of a good football team. Those are winning football teams, and that's the Lions and Eagles right now. There's a few others. But I agree, Paul. Darcy says, with losing Reed for 6 weeks hurts our best cover. Yeah, we hit on that a little bit, Darcy. I mean, obviously the cornerback's going down. With Reed out, I think that's their biggest loss. That veteran presence and his grit, the way he played, obviously forced a turnover, but he's a willing tackler. He does a lot of things that the Lions defense likes in their corners. So losing him will hurt. We talked about the signing that they have here. They went out inside the cornerback, Trey Flowers. So, I mean, they're making some moves to sort of get that depth back, and hopefully that combined with Amik Robertson, Rockyason, two quality corners, two veteran guys who've done this before. So, that, they have faith in those guys. But losing Reed hurts, losing Terrion hurts because they wanted to continue his development. That's going to be huge. And ultimately, as we look ahead at week 5 and this matchup with the Bengals, that's a big piece to this because the Lions have to defend weapons here for the Bengals. And T. Higgins and Lamar Chase. Those guys are not easy covers, no matter who's playing quarterback. Now, it does hurt them that they're not being distributed the ball from Joe Burrow. Don't get me wrong. That's a huge problem for their offense, and that helps the Lions' defense. But those two guys you have to account for. So the Lions' cornerbacks will have their work cut out for them against Cincinnati. Bengals are trash with absolutely no offensive line, no quarterback. Hutch should eat. I agree, Paul. This should be a Hutch-type game, defensive line-type game. It could get ugly in Cincinnati. Will Jake Bates have to make another game-saving tackle? Let's hope not, Trim. It's a great tackle against the Ravens. Save that drive. Let's hope he doesn't ever have to make a tackle ever again. We want him kicking 58-yard field goals, and that's it. Sherlock, how you doing, buddy? Mike says the Bengals have no run game. Defenses can just attack the quarterback the whole game. We should win by 60. Yeah, this is a tee-off game. This is definitely a tee-off game. I mean, ultimately, Lions offensive line, 0 sacks last week. They're going to have to be on the lookout for the Cincinnati Bengals pass rush. That's something I'd say is a little bit of a matchup. So we'll take a look at that. But if they can keep Jared Goff clean, I think the running game has no problems. I think you see a David Montgomery recovery type game. I don't want to see them force more balls to J-Mo, but I want to see him more involved. So hopefully we can get him a couple catches against the Bengals as well. Ultimately, I think it could be a feeding frenzy. So that's what the question in chat. With the Bengals at 2-2, Burrow out, the way that we saw them play on Monday night, do you think Detroit wins comfortably here? Or is this a trap game as we look ahead even one more week? I think I know the answer that I'm going to get here, but give me a score. What do you think the final score of the game will be? Darcy, next Wednesday, 7:45, is that AM or PM? Milson says, with the poor defense of the Bengals, it will be excellent opportunity for Goff and J-Mo to work on their timing. I agree. I would have thought that it should have worked against Cleveland, and it didn't. In my game prediction, my X factors, J-Mo was the guy. And I thought, truthfully, he got 8 targets, caught 2 of them. If you add 2 or 3 more catches, that's probably another score for the Lions, more statistics, and maybe he would have been the guy, but it just didn't work out. So I hope you're right, Millicent. This should be another opportunity for them. Mike says 44-6 Lions. I love it. Give me your final scores for Lions-Bengals coming up in week 5. Mike says 44-6. Next Wednesday, PM 7:45. I can commit to that, Darcy. If you want to send me some information, am I going on his show, I assume? If so, just send me a link or whatever information I need. Any topics, I'd love to join. That'd be great. I appreciate it. Sounds like we're going to be joining Johnny Mack of SI.com next week, Wednesday, 7:45. Mile marker says comfortable 40-something to teen-something. All right, so think in the 40s. So again, I take all this in. So as I make my game predictions for the game preview coming up, which will come out Friday, my game previews always come out through YouTube on Friday. Links to that through all the other socials. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have Lions-Bengals game preview coming up this week. So we will do a full dive into the key matchups, the X factors. I'll tell you what the difference in the game will be. And I always give that final score and prediction. And it sounds like, based on what we're seeing here, Lions should win big. Let me know what you think. Just to reiterate, we did have some breaking news this evening. Report the Lions signing former Seahawks cornerback to the practice squad amid their secondary injuries. This coming from Aaron Wilson, initially reported. Lions signing former Seahawks corner Trey Flowers to their practice squad. He has 287 career tackles, 4 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, and 5 fumble recoveries. So will that be enough depth for the Lions to get back their corner situation? They're in a tough spot in their secondary. No trap games with Dan Campbell. He keeps them focused. Paul, that's a huge thing. I mean, that is the mark of this Lions organization. If there's anything that they can hang their hat on, well, there's a lot of things they can hang their hat on. But truthfully, this whole haven't lost 2 games in a row in multiple seasons, that is the mark of a great coaching staff, a great roster, great preparation, motivation, everything. I mean, that's why there isn't any more SOL, because of those kind of things. Not only in like not failing in trap games, but not losing 2 in a row. And then the whole Honolulu flu thing, I believe that's so real. When you play the Lions, you come out of it bruised and battered, and you don't play the same the following week. It's almost proven that you either lose or you have a tough battle that next week after playing the Lions. I mean, that's the mark of a great organization. Trim says it's going to be ugly out there for the poor Bengals. Them Bengals, them zoo animals, a lot of zoo animals. Yeah, I agree. It should be a fun matchup. I think it's a 4:25 kickoff on Sunday. I do like the late afternoon kickoff. Gives us a little more time on Sunday to enjoy ourselves, watch the other games, and hopefully get keyed up for what will be a great runaway for the Lions here in week 5. MCDC Coach of the Year. Look, I would have argued he should have won in 2023, and he was robbed that year. He should have won it. But I think it came on the scene so quickly that the NFL didn't really know how to react. And sometimes political things play a part in that. But regardless, I think MCDC has a chance this year to be the coach of the year. Certainly, he's well on his way there. I'd love to see it. He certainly earned it. Organizationally, he's earned it, you know? But I got to say, I mean, after coming off that first week against Green Bay, I mean, you go back to shows that we did, not only leading up to it, but coming right off of that loss and how ugly things had gotten. Matter of fact, I had titled the live following that levels of concern. And we went through basically every position group, everything that worried us about levels of concern. Think about where we were then and where we are now. What a great turnaround for this Lions team. And again, goes back to the fact that this organization, this program, remember we talked about the program that Dan Campbell's built, sort of goes to what you said here, Paul. You know, that they're able to keep this thing running. And that week one was a blip on the radar. It was a recovery game. The record is 73-0, says Mike, just for reference. We need a ton of turnovers to get there. Having the most dominant win in NFL history is on the table this week. I love it. I love your confidence always, bud. And I hope we can get there. 73-0. Oh, man. It'd be incredible. As long as I win the Super Bowl, nothing else matters. Trim, you might be right, buddy. And that's why I was okay with my prediction early on in the season, 12-5. I felt good about that, but I also felt good with that they would be a better team even at 12-5. Now, they're exceeding my expectations already. 3-1 out of the first 4, they're sitting pretty good. And some of the teams that I was worried about them playing as part of this grueling schedule, when we looked at it originally, isn't so grueling anymore. You know, playing the Bengals without Joe Burrow is a gift. Playing the Kansas City Chiefs in their current state, although they picked it up a little bit last week, I think is a gift. I don't think it's the team the Lions faced at the beginning of 2023, you know what I mean, versus who they're going to play now in 2025. So I don't think you're getting some of these teams in the state you thought they'd be in. And the Lions may be in a better state than we thought they would be in. So that helps. Millicent says, Goff was feeling the pressure of Myles Garrett. He clearly wasn't comfortable in some of those throws to J-Mo. He kind of said that without saying it in his press conference. I think you're right, Millicent. He knew that there wasn't that extra 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 seconds for him to hold onto the ball or go to the next read. So I think the throw up to J-Mo in some cases was, okay, that's my second read, I'm going for it. Because I'm not going to take a hit from Myles Garrett. I'm not going to take a hit from this Cleveland pass rush. I agree with you. And that's why I'm not going to beat up J-Mo in the bigger sense of things. I just really want to see them continue to work on this. Don't go away from him, but don't force it. Let it come through the offense. Let the play action game dictate those shots that they take to J-Mo. Work it into your game plan, but don't force it. Trim says, Goff owns Mahomes. I remember a game between Mahomes and Goff when he was still with the Rams. It was I think it was a Monday night game. It might have been a Thursday. I don't know. It was one of the best shootout primetime games I've ever seen. That might have been the first time they played each other years and years ago. Kind of how Eli owned Brady. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the one guy like you can't talk to Tom Brady about is Eli Manning. It's so funny. Mike says, on those deep shots to J-Mo, we only had 2 other receivers in routes because we were in max protection. Well, I mean, so then it really goes back to that is his only option. He had to get rid of the football. I don't love then that you're going to I don't think so. I guess I don't even want to say I got to stop using the word force because I don't know if they're forcing the ball to him. Truthfully, the drops were drops. They are what they are. If it's in his hands, you should make the catch. I'd say there were only 3 of the 8 attempts when I watched it back to me that I would have said probably don't need to make that throw. Obviously, the interception is one of them. The 2 others, again, But I guess you're right, Mike. I mean, I wouldn't want Jared Goff necessarily then just to eat it or take a sack and get hurt. But that's the balance you got to play. Goff is a coach on the field. Yeah, Paul, that was one of the things we hit a topic on early in the preseason about the Goff offense and his effect on what he was able to do in the Ben Johnson offense versus what he's able to do in now the John Morton offense. And I don't think there's any change now. I think he's able to control, manipulate formations and change plays and audible, change protections. I mean, I'm sure he can do it all. I'm sure it only took him a week or two to really get comfortable with it. Maybe that had a little bit of an effect on what we talked about in week one, but now we're seeing that on the opposite end positively through the next 3 weeks. Make sure to hit the like button, guys. If you haven't already, hit the like button on the stream. Share it with your friends and family. I'd love to get more and more people involved as we try to do this each and every week, Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be prepping for the Week 5 game. Lions going to Cincinnati to face the Bengals. So we'll have the game preview coming up for Johnny Gaz Sports members through YouTube or Facebook. I'll have my highlights reaction to the game against the Browns. We have some fun with that. If you are a member of the YouTube channel, Johnny Gaz Sports, there's a ton of other fun stuff there for you, but there is always free content, concise and reliable Detroit Lions stuff for you at Johnny Gaz Sports. Any social you search for me, you will find stuff on the Lions. But I appreciate you guys for getting involved in the chat, for being involved in the channel from the start. Most of you guys have been with me from the beginning. Mike, Trim, I appreciate you guys very much. Paul, for being in the chat all day long. Millicent, I appreciate you're always here. Thank you guys so much. Darcy, appreciate you. Fleeting, everybody that's been involved in the chat. Tell your friends, tell your family. Let's get more of us so that we can talk some more fun with Lions football. Next week's live, we'll be coming into the Week 5 review. We'll talk about the Lions game against the Bengals. Hopefully another huge victory for our Lions, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about future topics. We'll be prepping for another huge game as the Lions look ahead in their ghastly schedule in 2025, but we're going to have so much fun with it. I'll have shorts coming out every day this week. Mike says the deep shots are always the hardest to hit. Being a little bit off on where you think the wide receiver is running can lead to a big miss on the field, especially in J-Mo's situation. He's so fast. I mean, that's tough to get that timing down. And it, like you said, it's one tiny misstep, one tiny hesitation. It doesn't take much, Mike. You're exactly right. Miles says, what do you think about BB's gameplay? First of all, I love Brian Branch, and he's such an asset to this defense. So I think he's provides so much more benefit than negative, but certainly he's also had issues with the penalties. I think he can get in his own head sometimes, and that can create problems. But the truth is, everything's outweighed by what he gives you with his intensity. He can play every position in the secondary for you. He'll come up, he'll blitz, he'll make tackles, he'll cover in the secondary, he'll cover tight ends, he'll cover running backs. So there's no limit to what Brian Branch will do for you. As much as Khalif Raymond's the jack of all trades on the offense, Brian Branch is that on the defense. So he's so valuable, another guy you cannot afford to lose. Yeah, Mike, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. He might be, I mean, between him and Hutch, it's a toss-up. But as far as like your most important defensive player, the guy that's going to make a majority of the plays defensively, it's Brian Branch. You cannot afford to lose him. What up, Carrie? I see you always listening. Thank you, Carrie. Of course, I'm calling you out as well. Trim says, let's go Lions. Woo! Fleeting, you the man. Or woman. Fleeting. Fleeting EXP doesn't give me much information. No, I appreciate you guys so much. Honestly, all the involvement. I just love sitting here talking Lions. And I will talk to myself, as you can tell, but I'd rather talk to you guys. It's much more fun. But Lions, 3-1. They are 3-1. I feel very good about where the Lions are at. I feel very good about their defensive projection. I think the offense, could have been better against Cleveland, but got the job done. And I think that will continue to round up. So a lot of good things. Defense, special teams, St. Brown. We talked about all that. We hit on the Week 5 preview versus the Bengals. Another huge opportunity to show that Detroit is one of the NFL's elite. Thank you, Fleeting. I appreciate you, ma'am. Also, says Goff said the plays and formations are the same, but the language is different than what we had with Johnson, and he gets 3 plays to choose from on the fly. That makes sense, right? Because anytime he's going to come to the line, you only can mess with the formation so much as far as shifting guys and motioning people over. So that would make sense. 3 plays. I mean, he's in control, though. We trust Jared Goff. Let's cut it right there, guys. We're just under an hour. Again, I appreciate you all for being involved. Thank you for getting involved in the chat. You guys are amazing. Again, if you hadn't hit the like button, please do that for me. It's the best free way to help out the stream. Share that off to everybody so we can get more people involved. More than anything, just keep watching the Lions. And even more than that, take care of yourself and your mental health. I say that at the end of every video. I'm not just saying it to say it. It's so true. It's more important than anything else. If you are better up here, you're better everywhere else. It's so true. If you need help, reach out, ask a friend, send me a message here in chat, send me a direct message. Take care of yourself. Okay? JG Nation, One Pride Nation, everybody should be taking care of yourself. I want to see you guys come back on future videos. Check out Johnny Gaz Sports, all your socials. Type in @ Johnny Gaz Sports. You will find fun, free, concise, reliable Detroit Lions content at any time. Hopefully you'll come back and see me. We'll be back next Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Live yet again, talking Lions football and all the fun topics we get into. Danny, I hope you have a good night as well. God bless you. Mile Marker, peace out. Trim, Steven, what up? Go Johnny, thank you. Appreciate you getting involved. We're going to peace out right now, but I hope you'll be back and see me later so we can chat it up, Steven. I appreciate you guys. Go Lions. Have a fantastic rest of your night. Fantastic rest of your week ahead. Don't be a stranger. Reach out. As Dan from Lions Talk Live says, try to do something nice for a stranger. Some of you don't know. Peace.